Hey there. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I'm back with the self love experience. This is Gwen Lepard, and I'm also back with inviting guests. It took me a while. Yesterday, I did actually three lives with two guests. One of them, Cara, who's going to be joining us. Cara Cadwallader. And hey there, Tracy. Good to see you here. So she hasn't popped on yet. She hasn't found me yet. Once she finds me, then we'll go ahead and go live with her and talk about how self care helps self love. And I mean, it's a big, huge piece of it. And hey, Jeffo, good to see you. Just waiting for Cara to pop on with us. And I guess I could bring up my Facebook. Oh, she's here. Awesome. I'm approving you and adding you. Now, talk about the amazing self-care stuff that you're doing with mamas. Oh, it's your mama. Hey, hi,
Here I am.
Cara.
Hey, it's helping me.
Aw, yay. Awesome. This is even better. I get both of you. Both of you live.
Yeah.
It sounds like you've got, again, something going on in the background, so I'm hearing an echo. Do you have
It was so cold. I was just looking at, can you turn that down or should I go somewhere else first? I was just watching the video from yesterday
oh,
and it was really garbled.
ah,
So let me go to another room and maybe it's just the media in this room affecting. Okay,
was it
don't go
you
too far.
garbled or was it me? Because I noticed I did one with Gwendolyn later, and in this spot, which is usually a
Mhm.
really good spot, and it was garbly too.
How's this? Is this better?
Well, you were fine from the get-go, but all I was,
Oh, I will.
yeah, yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah, it was more the noise in the background that I was listening to.
Oh, noise in the background.
Well, and it
Interesting.
wasn't
Huh.
noise. It was hearing the video. So as soon as you turned that off, you were
Oh, okay. Awesome.
fine.
Yay, hi.
Well, and this is good because you're doing self-care and providing a good signal for those watching.
Trying to.
Yeah. So that's taking care of yourself in a way. Yes. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Well, trying to take to,
And
yes, I'm tending to is, and for me, that's a big piece of self-care for us, I hope, tending to what is. It's not always easy though, especially with all the distractions that surround us.
absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. So tending to what is. Hmm.
So how much of your story are you willing to share?
Oh, I'm open. Let's
Awesome.
let's do it.
Let's do it.
Go.
So, so, um, some really big changes happened in you and your partner's life, you and Bert's life here recently. And so if you go ahead and share that and how that led you to self-care and self-love. And yeah, so let's start with that.
We big news is that my partner Bert Lowe, he was recently diagnosed with nasopharyngeal cancer. So that for him, it's a
And actually I'm going to stop you for a moment because now you are breaking up again. Yeah, I can't hear you. You are breaking up. So we need to move to a different spot. Yeah, I can't hear you at all right now. And I can't hear you. Hmm. Do I need to move? Hey, Tom. Good to have you here. We're working on some tech issues to get the audio for Cara to come in. And this is a really charged subject, so sometimes this is what happens. As um, so that just flipped the camera. That's cool. So a really charged thing is that Bert was diagnosed with cancer. So, and you're sharing exactly what kind. Do you want to pop off and then come back on? Because yeah, I can see your lips moving, but no sound. Oh, I heard that. Interesting.
Sorry, Gwen, I just the sound for some reason I can't.
Yeah, it's really strange. Can you not hear me either?
Now I hear you.
Now you hear me.
Weird.
Okay. And you're kind of frozen. So there might be maybe go back to where you started.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Bert. Can I hear you now?
Oh yeah, I can hear you now. Can I hear you? Such a play on that. I know it's warbling. Well, this is a charged subject, so sometimes that's what happens. It's energetics. Electronics are affected by high energy, and emotions emit energy waves, and that's something that I've been reading about a lot lately, and watching a lot on YouTube about what happens when we have high emotion. So this is a high emotion and a charged time for you. So let's see if we've got you now.
Yeah, well, I feel like you got me now. And with this full moon in Pisces, it is a highly emotional time.
I heard it was in Taurus.
Speaking into.
I heard it was a Taurus moon. It's a full moon in Taurus. This is what Gwendolyn was saying last night.
Anyway.
Yeah. Still highly emotional.
Yeah, yeah. So my partner was diagnosed with nasopharyngeal cancer, and that was about 2 months ago after a very challenging summer.
Yeah. Do you have a headset? Do you have a headset? Microphone? It's like I can hear little sounds in the background. And hey, Bert. Yeah, I can hear movement sounds in the background. So Jeffo and Tom and Tracy were having a chat, a little bit of technical difficulty with Cara this morning to talk about what's going on with her and Bert, and how that brought her to some really powerful self-care and self-care practices with other women, other mamas. She's an amazing mama herself, and it's interesting. I'm actually going to be on a live radio show at 11 o'clock. So I'm going, is this going to be, is this foreshadowing? Won't be an issue. Okay. So she's down to bring you back and add you back in with full volume. Persistence. I'm just with these Facebook Lives. Hey, hello.
I hear you now. Can you hear us?
I can hear you. Yes. Now I can't.
Talking softly. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, there's yeah. So maybe you need to be closer, or maybe a headset.
Let me try.
Oh, okay. Alrighty. We will do that. Awesome. Well, welcome back to Frozen Screen. Oh, there you go. You're moving around now. So the power of self-care. I was watching Cara do a Facebook Live on self-care, and it was really vulnerable and open and honest. And it was like, oh my gosh, I'd love to have you come on my Facebook Live, because it's time for me to get back into bringing others to you, and not just Yeah, basically a one thing that I can while they're figuring out the technology on their end is I do relationship clearing. It's actually the number one thing I'm doing little free clearings on Fridays at 3:30 p.m. Pacific on my Facebook page, Radiant Relationship Solution. Now that sounds like we might have some success here.
I think so, now that I'm on Bert's phone.
Yes, Bert's
Thank
phone
you,
is happy to communicate with us. Now, is it Kara or
Yeah.
Kara? How do you pronounce it?
Kara, please.
Kara. Okay, Kara.
Kara.
So you care. So Kara. Now I will get it right from now on.
Yeah, like self-care.
Yes, self-care. I love it. Okay, so
Mhm.
I've just been chatting a little bit. So why don't we try again with, and I didn't realize
Okay.
that was only 2 months ago. It seems like it's been so much longer. The
Yeah,
diagnosis.
yeah. October, some September. I think in August we got, yeah, in August we got the diagnosis. Bert struggled all summer with acute physical pain in his head, face. We thought it was a never-ending sinus infection, so we were
Mm,
chasing that down, and it's really hard to be in the face of your partner's pain and feel helpless. And
yeah.
then for me, at the start of the summer, I was just finding myself being very radically honest for the first time ever with myself. Yeah, self-care. And giving voice to feelings that I wouldn't allow myself to give voice to in the past because they're bad or they're negative, and you have to focus on the positive, otherwise you create the negative. And it just became really clear that I had to own what I was feeling. And so some of those words were miserable, definitely overwhelmed and anxious. And as I owned that, I realized that I am where I am because of my own empowerment or lack thereof, disempowerment. So
Right.
by giving voice to that, it was just really clear for me to see that it's actually really easy to be empowered and just to take the steps that I need to take to make change. And that doesn't mean that I'm miserable all the time. I'm in love. I love my family, and we're happy. And yet there are just moments where, and especially just where we found ourselves. We live in this big suburban house, which we intended on sharing with another family when we got it, and we found ourselves living here alone for a few months, and it was so overwhelming, so anxious. Everywhere I looked there was just work to be done, and so it felt good to give voice to that, and it felt like a starting place. And there was something about owning that, like, yeah, I'm in the mud, I'm in the muck here, and it's where I am. So then Bert was in pain, and that was really challenging as well. He was, just more absent. He's here present, but more physically absent, and changed his sleep patterns. He wasn't sleeping with us, which affected our son because we have our nighttime rituals. And yeah, it was just, it has been a challenging dance. And so receiving this diagnosis, although neither of us were thinking or seeing cancer as being on our radar, and who wants that, of course,
Right.
there was also a path forward that it offered, because now we know what we're dealing with. And uh, yeah, so we could, take action. There's the empowerment piece again, and move forward. So yeah, in terms of self-care, and then I've been looking at my self-care since I became a mother. Or really, it's been highly illuminated how unaware I am of how to take care of myself. How, as a woman, I've been raised to prioritize others, children and men, above
Right.
and beyond my own emotional and physical well-being. And so, there'd be times my partner, he's so compassionate. Bert, can you close that door, please? Thanks. My partner is so compassionate, and I would have moments, lots of moments, where I'm just like, I'm so stretched thin because I've got this much sleep as a mother to a young child,
Yeah.
and I'm extremely impatient. I'm quick to frustration, and I'll do things that aren't in my highest, that aren't pretty. Um, I'll behave in ways that are ugly, quite frankly, just snappy, or maybe pushing my child out of frustration. That happened when he was like 20 months old. And my partner's response to me is every time it happens is, "What do you need? What do you need?
Wow.
What do I need?"
Yeah.
And at first that would be frustrating because it'd be like, "I don't know. I don't know what I need." And so it just became a mantra that for 2 years, and at first he really helped me make appointments to see a chiropractor, the physical appointments for that physical
Yeah.
self-care, to show up for those. It was just baby steps, asking myself, trying to become more familiar with what my needs are. So here we are. We've arrived here at this place where my partner's needs are like really trumping the game. And I'm so clear that, and I've just stepped into this place with my own self-care. It's at such a higher level than it's ever been. And in order to keep moving forward and sustain my family and myself, I have to maintain prioritizing my own self-care.
Yeah.
So it's a dance. um, but yeah, there's that. And then bringing that to the work. So I run a cooperative out of my home for mothers and their children. And really my intention in creating this was offering a space where women can get our needs met. So often in our society, again, the focus is on the kids, or, the making the money. And kids don't need anything. Like, we're constantly like tending to the children. It's like, leave them alone. They're fine. Give them sticks and stones and put them in the yard. It's us mamas that need tending to. So that was really my intention in creating this cooperative. It's become a little bit of what looks like kind of a lovely educational opportunity for my son, which he needs, with someone who kind of plays the role of a young educational teacher. Um, and I'm grateful that I've cultivated this space that I can bring this experience that I'm moving through of how to love myself more. And this summer, because it was so intense, so challenging, and yet I would, take advantage of the opportunities to show up to love myself more, to go to energy medicine workshops. I actually had an opportunity to attend a week-long, just in the evening for 3 hours for a week, a postmodern dance workshop. And it was everything my nervous system's been needing since becoming a mother, which was a bit bittersweet because those are the tools I gave myself 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, But I will say that, beyond like the doing things, right? The doing the classes or going for the massage, those things are all great. But what I've learned in just the recent months is,
Listen to this. This is important.
is the key piece is self-compassion. And my partner, he's so great. He helps me to, when I've been looking at a lot of shame inside of myself and not honoring my worth, or not feeling worthy, not feeling enough, especially if I make mistakes with other people, mistakes in communication. And my partner, he'll always ask me, and he'll be like, "Would you judge Kahlo, our son, for these mistakes? Would you think he's any less?" And it's like, of course not. And so learning how to apply that to me and to really love this inner child who walks with me today, even though I just turned 42, which means that I've emerged, I've left maidenhood. I'm no longer that girl, and I've fully stepped into this second phase of my life of motherhood. And there's a little grief in that, truth be told. But I've definitely been learning more how to love that inner child me and really honor her with self-compassion and less judgment, critical thinking, things like that.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I love that you brought that compassion piece in, because we do a lot. And you as a mom and a partner and as a facilitator are doing an enormous amount. So to bring in
Mhm.
that compassion and and ask, I love what Bert, brought to your attention. Would you
Mm.
judge a small child? Because a lot of times
Right.
we are, when you're in a situation that is very stressful, that we revert to our small child and start acting out from that place. And that's where, the love as moving into motherhood, that now you're mothering yourself as well as your son.
Right, right. Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And then
yeah,
from there, how can I apply that and offer that to others? Yeah,
of course.
yeah.
Yeah, being a giver and
Hmm.
wanting to make the world a better place. Right. And
Hmm.
that's what I loved when you were sharing about self-care. And you said something about how self-care and self-love were not the same. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Hmm. Interesting. Well, I think again, just for me as a woman and as a mother, the self-care thing can be very confusing, right? Like, what does that mean? Okay, I'll go to the yoga class. I did my self-care. Um, and then once I came to this compassionate, look at the turmeric on my hands. Turmeric,
Oh,
love it. Cutting turmeric just a little bit ago. Um,
love it.
so when I came to this self-compassion piece, that was kind of the breaking through of like, I love myself, holding myself, this like really loving me starting here. And it's not, whatever I need, I have to give myself. Or I can ask others to give it to me.
Yes.
But so often, a lot of my pain, anger, and frustration would be, wanting my partner to read my mind and give me, not tell him, but for my birthday, it's like at least a homemade card and a cake every year, but I'm not going to tell you because you have to know. And then I'm angry, and it's like, well, that's just silly. Like, just ask for it, or, that empowerment piece. So I don't know, words are funny and we could debate. I just wanted to distinguish that self-care can be kind of confusing because I think it's associated with a list of things to do that are
Yeah.
kind of action steps. And there's
Yes.
that piece around really like, just the love and the compassion, and that's it. You don't have to do anything. You can give yourself a
Right.
massage. You can look in the mirror and gaze in your own eyes and just,
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah.
just being with,
Being
yeah.
with yourself. Yeah. And actually, as you spoke earlier, being with yourself when you're in the muck and when you're doing things that are ugly and or perceived as ugly,
Mhm.
when you're dancing with the shadow,
Mm.
that those times of feeling the warmth in your chest for yourself and remembering the chemical feel that it felt like when you fell in love for the first time and bringing those chemicals back to yourself and it's like, well, what does that feel like, and I've found that, hugging or the face touch
Mm.
brings those chemicals into
Mm.
into my body
Mm.
because it's cherishing this
Mm.
being that resides in this physical body. And you're right,
Mhm.
self-care is often a list of to-dos. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, and I know that actually, what is your favorite self-care piece right now? What's your favorite self-care thing to do?
Honestly, the biggest piece of self-care that I'm being with right now is around my purpose in the world. And sharing my artist voice and heart, and kind of stepping forward and making those offerings. I think it's been really easy for me to hide behind, well, of course, motherhood, being in a relationship. And then I'm really good at creating space, and I'm definitely a keeper of the village space. And oftentimes I can find myself kind of hiding behind that and not really kind of stepping forward to yeah, just share these stories that are in my heart. So that's actually, so it was my birthday this weekend. I just turned 42, as I shared earlier, and 42. So that's 7 times 6, right? So there were seven. I've had um, 6 years, sorry, 6 rotations of 7 years makes 7 times 6 makes 42. So, those are 7 generations, and that's that idea of those first 42 years being your maidenhood, youth. And I'm really feeling, I'm feeling just the loss of that, the youth and beauty is kind of, it's gone. It's like it'll always be there. Aging is a beautiful thing. I'm not diminishing that, but there is that piece, in our society and culture. We're so caught up in the sparkle, and it's like, oh, that sparkle is just like faded. And there's something exciting in that. And there's also some grief here, because I recognize that there was a lot of that time kind of spent not being present and either living in the future, what ifs, or the past of, that kind of I wasn't present. So there's some grief there, and I'm feeling that.
And I hadn't heard
It
the
was my
42. I hadn't heard about the 42. And so that's very
yeah.
fascinating. I mean, you have, the 30, you turn 30, you're no longer, someone that can be trusted, but maidenhood actually lasts to 42. That's like really good news.
Yeah,
I'll let you continue.
For my birthday party, I just gathered my sisters around and had a ceremony around taking my staff. But a couple of the women, especially the crones, mentioned that one person mentioned that she was the most afraid of turning 42. It wasn't 40, it was 42 that brought up all that fear and kind of that like midlife crisis feeling, which I can relate to right now. And then another woman brought up the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I guess the answer to the universe is 42. So, stepping away from that, So there were a few pieces here I wanted to share because I heard you speaking yesterday in your promotional video for this conversation around feeling resistance and still moving through and moving through resistance. So for my birthday, I haven't celebrated my birthday with others since 2012. It's been about 6 years. And I've made it a point to celebrate my partner's birthday and my son's birthday for the last few years. And, if I've got a model that I'm just as worthy to be celebrated. So it's important that I'm demonstrating that for my son. Yeah, totally. Right. And then I just felt like I didn't just want to party. There was something more that wanted to come through. So I wanted to have this ceremony that I called Taking Up My Staff. And it was a rough week. Like I was PMSing, then my menstrual flow started the day of my birthday. And let me tell you, the resistance was thick. I did not want to have this birthday party. On Friday, I was like, I don't want to do this thing. On Sunday, I don't want to do this thing. All the way up to like, like did not want to do this.
Well, and I'll share what was interesting when you're finished.
Okay, cool. And even moments of it beginning, there's still these palpable feelings in my body of just like not wanting to do it. And then of course, still did it. Because this was, I had very specific requests that I was asking for. And, halfway through, of course, it's like, oh my God, I'm so glad I gave this to myself. I'm so glad I asked for this. And it was exactly what I needed. So there was something in there for me because so often in the past, and I would say this was very much related to my lack of self-compassion and self-love, when I feel the resistance, I bail. I don't show up. And I just want to love you to death, Gwen, because you are showing up every day with this self-love. How do you love yourself? And showing up is the first step to anything.
Yep.
I mean, being in our dance community taught me that. It's so easy to be like, I don't need that. I'm just going to stay home and watch TV because, Lord, that TV can be intoxicating and such a distraction, or the media and the computer at this point, the phone. So showing up, just showing up. And even when it's like this, like everything, just my whole ego, everything is like, no, don't show up.
And I'm going to jump in here with that because I had fully planned to be at dance and to be at your party. And the morning started and my whole body was like, it was stay away. I heard it in my mind over and over and over again, stay away. And I'm like, I can drive up there, but when I'm hearing that, because I'm clairaudient, when I'm hearing that so strongly, so I might have been hearing your resistance, and it's like, I don't want to do this. But for me, I needed a day where I didn't do anything, and I actually didn't show up that day for my Facebook Live. I had to do it the next morning.
wow.
I broke my record. I did 293 days in a row, and but I didn't bail by missing one. I made it up as soon as I laughed. I'm like, okay, it's like falling when you go skiing. The first fall, then it's simple after that. So it took me 293 days to fall. So the 294th day was your birthday.
Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. And you didn't show up. I love it. I love it.
And I didn't show up at dance, and I didn't show up for you.
So awesome. So awesome. Well, you were here in spirit.
I showed up for myself. I did show up for myself because I did nothing. Because that's what I needed, was I needed to do nothing. And I was alone for the first time in a very, very long time, totally alone. Well, okay, I have 4 cats, but I have the care and feeding them, but none of them are really my cat. So I had that lack of human contact, and it was actually what I needed, though it was very, very uncomfortable. So I would have much rather been with you guys, but that stay away was so loud.
Yeah. And the discernment piece, right?
Yeah.
So knowing the difference between when it's like a very clear, like, no, and when it's this ego death.
Resistance.
Right. Ego death.
I love that.
Yeah, that's what it was for me, was serious ego death, which also is what I experienced with my partner, not too ironically. So yeah. And that could be a whole other conversation, how to discern between those two.
And I think we should have another conversation on discernment. That sounds like a good thing, because I do have a live radio show that I'm going to do in a half an hour. So I'd like to prep for that. Any last words about self-care and how you're loving yourself today that you'd like to leave us with?
Oh, goodness. Well, it's an ongoing learning process. So none of us are masters of self-care, simply because who we are is changing in every moment, right? So if we're really open to kind of the mystery and to this idea of just being the human experience, and there are days, I know you mentioned shadow earlier, and light and shadow is simply part of life on planet Earth. But I don't necessarily consider acting out or striking out. Those things to me aren't necessarily shadow. It's just part of being human, of like, oh, there's a dark cloud here today, okay, and I feel down. So allowing that, and so we're all on the journey of learning how to love ourselves more. Wherever we are is perfect, and whether we're just beginning or we are like light years on the journey, we're all there together. And I love myself, which is so fun to come into that place. And it's like this full moon is really dredging some stuff up, and right now it's not necessarily easy to love myself. It's a little hard, and I'm feeling a lot of sadness, and so I'm just learning how to lean into that and be with that, and not judge it as like something that's bad or wrong with me, but it's just something that's here as information that wants to be seen, heard, expressed, and felt. And then still I want to show up. And so here's to showing up, and here's to you showing up to your radio show. Thank you for having me. So fun. Thanks for your patience with the communication, and I look forward to more.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing that I found out with Facebook is having patience and persistence seems to work. And it's true with self-love and self-care, is that you have to have patience with yourself, especially if you've been programmed that everyone else is more important. And be persistent and continue to give yourself that self-love even when you're up against the resistance. And I wanted to say hi to Audra and Emmett for joining us, along with Tom and Jeffo and Tracy. Wonderful having you all here this morning with self-care.
Self-care.
I think you should TM that. TM.
And self-care. And just just to share, we do have a self-care week here at the co-op once a month. I think it's the second week of the month. So I offer some movement medicine and just dropping in, deeper breath, everything we talked about to share with the mamas. And then I'll be offering more of my teaching and mama moves in the wider community as the months unfold.
Fabulous. And make sure that you share those on my wall.
Okay, I
And
will.
if you have something that you can share now, share it in the comments of this video. And
Great.
definitely, yeah, I know that your presence is really, really wonderful. And anyone that hasn't met you and is a mama or that would like to be in that mama space,
Mm.
taking advantage of your offerings would be really, really valuable.
And papas too. It's for mamas and papas. Yeah,
Yay!
papas are just as welcome, just as included.
Oh,
It's just,
fabulous.
us mama needs lots of love.
You absolutely do.
Well,
You got
thank
to
you
have a
so much.
full cup. Yeah, so you've
Yeah.
helped me fill up my cup today. That's one of the ways that I'm loving myself is being present for you and really grateful to start allowing others back in as part of my daily self-love. So
Yeah,
thank
wonderful.
you so much. Mwah,
You're welcome. Mwah. Love ya.
mwah, mwah. Love you. So for everyone else, it's been awesome having you here. Awesome having you watching and sharing with Kara Cadwallader. And now, go love yourself.